Welcome to Aflame for Christ, homilies to set your heart on fire with love for Jesus Christ. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and you've joined us on this first Sunday of Lent. So in today's Gospel, Jesus is able to overcome these three vicious temptations because he was strengthened through fasting. Wait, strengthened? Wouldn't someone be weakened through fasting? Not at all. Fasting and self-denial are the critical tools on the pathway to spiritual strength. You know, every society in history knew this. Consider, for example, the ancient warriors of Sparta, whose rigorous training is legendary. They were issued only one cloak so that they would have to endure the cold winters shivering. Their food was meager, forcing them to be resourceful. They slept on the floor, practiced intense physical exercise, lived a regimented life. Was that harsh? Yeah, definitely. But during the Battle of Thermopylae, 300 Spartan soldiers were able to hold off 300,000 men for 7 days, giving everyone in the city a chance to retreat, saving lives. Their discipline paid off. Even in our modern day, the rigorous training for the Marine Corps or Navy SEALs seems ruthless, but I'm certainly glad that these noble men and women are defending our country. Sadly, though, I think most Christians do not spiritually train through fasting nearly enough. Sorry to be blunt, but most American Catholics have grown so spiritually weak and unable to resist serious temptation because they have no idea how to deny themselves even a chocolate bar. So let's discuss why we must fast and how to do it well. First, the why. Well, because, number one, fasting brings about freedom. You remember that old Lay's potato chip slogan? Bet you can't eat just one. And that's kind of true, right? How often have we struggled to say no to that potato chip, to that donut, to that impure website, to that word of gossip? We find ourselves trapped in slavery if we do not develop the strength to say no. Most temptation is really a battle between the flesh and the will, right? Which one is going to have mastery? Our will is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes. So fasting, denying ourselves food or some other legitimate pleasure, exercises our will, strengthening it, so that we can more easily deny ourselves a sinful pleasure. A man who can deny his flesh is a man who is not a slave to his flesh. Therefore, fasting leads to freedom. Secondly, though, fasting puts love into action. Once a man came to his priest halfway through Lent and said, "You know, Father, I tried to give up dessert for Lent, but it was too hard, so I gave up." The priest responded, "It wasn't too hard. Your love was too small." Love is sacrifice. If we love someone, we want to give things up for them. So if we truly love God, we will desire to make small sacrifices and even big ones. One student in my confirmation class asked me recently, "Father Joseph, is it bad that I have a desire to be a martyr?" I said, "No, it's not bad at all. It's a very great blessing because it means you have such a love for God that you want to give it all for Him." Thirdly, fasting clears the space for God in our lives. So giving up our smartphone gives us time for prayer, right? Feeling the peck of hunger makes us realize that our true hunger is for God. We only have a limited amount of time, energy, attention, and money in our life, so when we deny ourselves something, this frees up a space in our life to give to God. Fourth, fasting helps us to identify with the poor. You know, most of the world still feels hunger every day, and so in solidarity with them, can we not experience the pinch of hunger for a bit? Most of the world does not have access to the luxuries we do. Can we not give up something and just pray for them? Fasting, then, is closely related to almsgiving, right? The money we save from not getting the triple shot venti latte can be given to a charity. After all, as Tolstoy once said, "I am a participant in a crime if I have superfluous food, extra food, and another has none." Finally, fasting is an obedience to Christ, right? Jesus himself said, "Unless you deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple." He was quite serious. Daily self-denial is intrinsic to the life of a Christian. And of course, he gives us this perfect example of fasting in today's gospel. But it goes even further back than Jesus. St. Basil recognized and said, quote, "Fasting is as old as mankind. It was given as a law in paradise. The first commandment Adam received was, 'Do not eat.'" Okay, but I can hear the objection in many of your hearts, right? Many of you are saying, well, doesn't God want us to be happy? Why would he create such good pleasures if we weren't supposed to enjoy them? Fasting and self-denial are not about denying the goodness of the body or saying that pleasure is bad, any more than a diet is about denying the goodness of food, right? People diet because they're choosing a higher good, their health, over a lower good, this donut, right? They're choosing a long-term good over a short-term good. Likewise, fasting and self-denial is about choosing a higher good, God and eternal life, over a lesser good, which is pleasure. Okay, but I can hear a second objection from your hearts. We shouldn't give up, we should take on for Lent, right? Do something extra for God in Lent. Yes, that's great, go for it. But don't give up on fasting. We should do all three of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and fasting is absolutely critical for growing in the spiritual life. So as you take on something positive this Lent, don't abandon the ancient practice of fasting. Do both, right? So how do we fast? Well, a wise priest once told me, a sacrifice is not a sacrifice unless it hurts, unless it costs you something. So giving up spinach because you hate it is not a sacrifice, right? And all you kids who want to give up homework for Lent, sorry, not a sacrifice. Choose something that you love and give it up because you love God more. I find it helpful to write down my fasting plans. It can also be helpful to be accountable to someone else, right? Your spouse or a friend, so that they can ask how it's going. And you can really fast from any pleasurable thing, right? You can fast from smartphones, YouTube, unnecessary purchases, going out to eat, unholy music, or anything else. You could rise earlier to pray or make commitments to get to Mass. But the traditional fast does involve food, and I can testify that a food fast actually has the most spiritual power. So maybe give up dessert, or drink nothing but water, or refrain from eating between meals, or skip a meal, or go vegan. Feel the pangs of hunger and unite them to Christ's suffering on the cross. However you choose to fast and deny yourself, we must practice them in obedience to Christ so that we train to discipline our bodies so we can more easily resist temptation. I close with St. Augustine's very wise words about fasting. He wrote, "Fasting cleanses the soul, raises the mind, subjects one's flesh to the spirit, renders the heart contrite and humble, scatters the clouds of temptation, quenches the fire of lust, and kindles the true fire of chastity." If we learn to say no to ourselves, we will soon find it very easy to generously say yes to God.